Hi everyone, welcome to
Mimosa Talks.
Hi everyone, this is Lola. Today we're going to talk about how we can stay in a healthy relationship and how to strengthen our current relationships.
I think it's important to spend time strengthening our relationship with our significant other, because at the end is the person that we spend the most time with, right? So different traits like establishing healthy boundaries, being honest, thoughtful, empathetic, a good listener, a good communicator, or worthy of their trust is important to build. And that always is gonna just add into strengthening our relationship. But let's just go in depth in all the characteristics and how we can do that.
Actually, I think it's fun to work out with your partner or to go for long walks or to have experiences. But one of the first thing that seems to work to straighten your relationship is mindfulness. In this article by Barnes and others, the role of mindfulness in romantic relationship satisfaction and responses to relationship stress, which was published in 2007. They say that several authors have suggested that mindfulness may have considerable value for enhancing the quality of romantic relationship. It promotes an ability to witness thought and emotion so as not to react impulsively and destructively to your partner. It emphasizes the importance of being attentive and an active listener for successful communication. And I will bring back more of these examples later, but I think this is already a lot. If you can be emotionally intelligent and self-aware and not take conflict as an attack but as something to grow with your partner, it can be actually such a beautiful thing. And then the more you strengthen your relationship, the more in love you are and the happier you are. I mean, it's a win-win-win. It's worth doing the work, I think.
Yeah, mindfulness is something that people have been trying to implement into their daily lives. They've been meditating and perhaps just trying to stay in the present moment. It has been shown to increase just well-being and retention of memory, and so many other things that mindfulness does help with, but also in terms of partnership and strengthening love. There was a study done by Brian Dawn and Sarah Algo in 2020. The title of their study was Impermanence in Relationships, Trait Mindfulness Attenuates the Negative Personal Consequences of Everyday Dips in Relationship Satisfaction. In their study, they talked about how our partners are naturally going to have bad days. They're going to perhaps be in their bad moods, and that doesn't mean that we necessarily need to take it on. And so they were talking about mindfulness as a way to help buffer our partner's perhaps bad days or bad moods. They were talking about awareness of the present moment and non-judgment of what arises in the present moment. They also talked about impermanence, which is the Buddhist principle that nothing remains the same and that change is unavoidable. Change is going to happen in your relationship, in your life, and with your partner's moods. So if we kind of try to adopt a more mindful approach to just the natural changes in our relationship and perhaps in our partner's mood, our love may help. That may help strengthen our love.
Yes, I mean, mindfulness makes us more aware of our behavior and the behavior of our partner. So whenever we know how we're acting, we're able to just pause a second and be aware how we're going to respond towards something that we like or we don't like. And it's also important to also recognize, I don't like that, or maybe I made a mistake. I'm sorry about that. It's important to just admit or communicate what you like or you don't like.
Yeah, and the same article I mentioned before, they were saying that the greater practice of mindfulness on a given day predicted improved relationship happiness, stress coping efficacy, and lower relationship specific and overall stress. And it showed also that more mindful people viewed their romantic relationship more positively in many ways, because it teaches you how to have self-control and accommodate, and you don't self-destruct. A lot of the things that you see in unhealthy couple is there's conflict that are personal attacks. Everything is taken personally. When somebody does something in the couple and they're in a, I don't want to say toxic, but in a healthy place, they'll assume the other partner is doing that against them. It becomes like a lot of assumption and lack of communication, and mindfulness kind of destroys that.
I like what you were saying about how it can kind of become like a personal attack, because it's very true. I feel like when you practice mindfulness, let's say your partner comes home and maybe doesn't immediately greet you with the same warmth that you were expecting, someone who may be practicing mindfulness would perhaps think, oh, my partner seems to maybe have had a bad day. They'll kind of put it more on outside factors rather than saying, oh, my partner knows that I hate that. They're trying to just piss me off by not greeting me. So when you're mindful, you're able to kind of put things into perspective and not necessarily blame your partner so much, but maybe the forces outside of your relationship. And also responsiveness, because you can ask, but it does take a level of responsiveness for both people to feel that there is a communication. There was a study done by Birnbaum and other researchers in the year 2016. They titled their study "Intimately Connected: The Importance of Partner Responsiveness for Experiencing Sexual Desire." In their study, they found that women and men, but mainly women, they felt more sexual desire when they received their partner's responsiveness. So responsiveness helps benefit relationship well-being, and it signifies that the partner can be counted on to hold space, be reliable, and care for the other's needs. So responsiveness can help with communication, well-being, but it can also help with sexual desire.
Sexual intimacy, is important to also understand that according to Gav in his article in 2022, called The Relationship Work of Sexual Intimacy in Long-Term Heterosexual and LGBTQ Partnership, sexual intimacy and romantic attachments, it will shift over the course of tradition, right? Our culture, our age, our experience will change how we perceive sexual intimacy, what we like, what we don't like, what is the normal frequency in our lives to actually have sexual intimacy, and what feels healthy to us. So it's important to also recognize that what feels normal to you or healthy to you is not going to be the same for others. And it's okay to communicate with your partner. What are you feeling? How do you feel? Do you feel like we need more of this or less of this? Constant feedback is important, because in 1 year, you will be different completely than when you met your partner.
I love the constant feedback, and I think that it's also really important to time it in a time when maybe you're feeling good about the relationship, because that way you have the context of, I love this person, we're in a really good space. However, there are things that I would like to see improvements on, rather than doing it when you're in the heat of an argument. You know, when you're in the heat of an argument and then you're bringing up this side conversation, it could potentially just make the argument bigger and snowball into something bigger, when really the argument is about fixing problem A, not problem Z. You know, so I think I love the check-ins. I do love the check-ins, and kind of maybe trying to time it when you're both in a space. Like if you're having dinner, you can kind of check in with each other. Hey, like, is there anything that you are loving about our relationship? And then you can let them respond. And then, is there anything that you're maybe needing more of that maybe I can help provide that? Or is there something that you'd like to see differently from me? But just making sure that we time it when we are not in the middle of an argument.
Yeah, clear communication, like you said, is so important. But then also, I sometimes have to fight reacting, depending on what it's about. But if somebody brings up something I did wrong, maybe I'll feel like cornered, which is totally human, right? It's like the animal, like, what did you say? So in those instances, I'm more likely to say, okay, I hear it, but I need a minute, because I want to be able to process it. I don't want to go too fast sometimes into conversations when there's like an issue being brought up or something like that. You don't want to just talk for hours without really having had time to check in with yourself. And that's part of the clear communication, right? You can't communicate clearly if you don't have it clear yourself. So that's the taking a little space that you were talking about.
Yeah, and I this helped me really to put it into perspective, because like you said, Lola, we're all human, and there is this animal side of us that may at times feel cornered when we feel like we're being attacked. The way that I've tried to frame it in my mind after reading this book It's just that our brain is now shutting down when we're in these arguments. It might bring up old feelings, it might bring up past traumas, and literally our higher parts of our brains are shutting down, and we're entering more into the lower part of our brain, which is more of the animal brain, less logic going on. So we're not going to be able to get those intellectual responses that we're thinking about, those that we're craving, you know. So sometimes we really do need to give it a pause. We need to say, hey, why don't we just go on a walk? Why don't we breathe? Why don't we, you know, because you need to kind of help your brain enter more of the higher brain so that you can have more of that logical conversation.
And sometimes I think that it's very easy to start blaming. Be in a conflict and be like, oh, but you did this, you did that. And what about ourselves? Are we analyzing what we did? And it's okay sometimes that, yeah, you're hurt for something your partner did or said. If you did something, take ownership of that and be humble enough to go to your partner and be like, you know something, I'm sorry. I did this, and that. I shouldn't come out like that. But if you're gonna do that, sometimes you need to do it without expecting anything back. Like, okay, I said this, now it's your turn. And it's important to know that everybody has their time. Everybody analyzes and digests information at different times. And it's okay that in 3 days your partner comes and he tells you, I'm sorry, you know something, I just realized that I also did this. So forgiving and letting go of things that really hurt you, that's going to bring peace in your daily life. And that's at the end what you need to realize, that you need to work on yourself and you just need to let go of things that are going to affect your work, relationships with friends, family. And sometimes like when fights happen in your head, you just keep thinking and thinking and thinking. Sometimes it's okay to just like let go of things, especially if they're not that important.
Well, you do need to address them, but like I was going to say, sometimes it's not even a fight. Like I'll be sharing something a little personal, but like the other day I saw my boyfriend and he was upset about other stuff, and in his upset he wasn't being very mindful of me, and while I was being understanding, it hurt my feelings, where I was like, I don't want to be here, because that's where I go when I'm hurt. I leave. I'm like, I'm gonna leave, take my time, lick my wounds, try to figure out why I was hurt. And that's what I did. I went home, and the next day I was like, okay, let's go for a walk. So that's what you were mentioning, Sammy. And that was a great way to just talk. And he apologized right away. He's like, I realized, I was in my head and I wasn't mindful of you being there. But I could, before in the past, I wouldn't have brought it up. I would have been like, well, I understand, it's not his fault. But the truth of the matter is I was hurt, and my hurt matters, and it needs to be addressed.
And I love that you didn't go in defense mode, because sometimes when we get hurt and our partner tells us something that hurts us, we say like, no, but why you're saying that? And right away we are reactive. And we are like, well, but you did this and you're that. We point fingers. And that's not gonna help. That's not gonna solve an issue. So whenever we go back and we actually communicate with our partner what actually hurt us, that will bring a solution. And at the end, that's what we're looking for.
I liked what you were saying earlier, Fabi, about it not being the timing that you necessarily want it. You have to give someone space to experience their feelings on their own. And maybe people experience things better when they're reflecting in the car driving to work. It's just not all in the timing that you want it. That's definitely something that I've had to work on with my own partner, is knowing that he can't always give me the responses that I want in that moment. And I was actually hurting myself trying to get responses. I was too busy putting my energy into that now I'm actually at a place where I'm like, okay, well, I respect that you're not there. However, I'm taking a different approach now. I'm doing more of like what Lola did, kind of like going and licking her wounds, because I feel like what I want in that moment is the reciprocation of energy. I want it in the way that I give it, but it's not possible because it's not how he gives it. So I think in that moment, the thing that I've worked on is kind of shining more of the love that I'm trying to get and just putting it back on myself rather than expecting it from him in that moment in that way.
It's so good. Yeah, that is exactly, I think, what I do. But also, it's being able, I'm a pretty emotional person, being able to express your hurt in a healthy way. And for me to do that, I have to have it really clear of what exactly I'm trying to communicate, because that's also what when things escalate. That's why the timeline is so important. Like you can't expect somebody to answer. You can't demand answers from someone. Like whenever you decide that this is the time, and that is part of being mindful too. You have to be mindful of your own feelings and your partners, and that you are two individuals that are going to have a lot of emotions and that are going to express them differently. And being in a healthy relationship is realizing that, and realizing that yeah, you'll get to know your partner and everything, but they might surprise you sometimes with reactions. But as long as there's like a respect and a love and a kindness that you give to the other person, then you should be able to figure it out and work through whatever you need to work through, really. Well, and it's also, I mean, it's more, it's even, it goes deeper. You are with a different person than you, and you have to accept that. And when you are in a long-term relationship, you would think, well, now I know them. That's not how it works, because we're always changing, we're always growing. People will grow one way or another, and you have to meet your partner where they're at, and you have to accept certain things that maybe you wouldn't accept. Like I hear a lot of things about like change. You can't change the other person. If you go into a relationship thinking I'm going to change this person from who they are to who I want them to be, then it's already failed, because they are who they are. They can grow, they can change behaviors, but that's within the growth pattern, but not change who they are. Like that's not possible. Then you're going in for the wrong objectification. Then you're making up this person in your head, and then when you're faced with the reality of them, it's not that. And so you're like, it's okay, I can work with this, I can change them. No, you can't be. And why would you want to?
I mean, it's important to get to know your partner, right? So you need to learn how to be interested. Sometimes you're not interested in their hobbies or whatever they love, and it's okay. You need to find how to connect with your partner and be like, how am I gonna do something that he enjoys so much with this person? Maybe he likes art. Let's do a piece of a painting, or maybe a song, or maybe I don't know. Maybe we can make a podcast together. Just something that gets you together, or it makes you spend time with this person. Doing something that actually is gonna add to your relationship is very important.
Yeah, Fabi, that is exactly what I would say too, is do things together, creating something together, or volunteering together. Like do something that's significant, because experiences, when you share experience with someone, you're building memories, and you're also in a place of openness, especially if it's something you've never done. Like do new things, go paddleboarding, I love paddleboarding, go kayaking, go for a ride. Like it doesn't matter, like it's all about the newness of it, because it puts you in a state of, again, openness and calm, and then you really build these beautiful memories and grow.
I feel like you can strengthen your relationship when something doesn't become like monotonous. So you need to find how to put excitement to your relationship. Maybe if you have a busy life with your partner, it's okay. Everybody's doing their own thing. That's awesome. But let's set a date. On Fridays, we're going to do this. Or maybe on the weekend, I'm going to take you here. And it's okay if your partner hasn't done a lot for you in a long time. If you haven't received anything, then look at yourself. Have you done something for your partner for you to be just complaining or asking something so much, or putting so much pressure on your partner? Sometimes it's a reflection of what we're doing, and we need to be aware that we need to be humble to analyze ourselves, and what we're thinking and doing is also influential in the relationship.
Mm-hmm. I really like traveling to new cities, and maybe not going with like an itinerary, and just having maybe major cities that I want to kind of touch on. And I feel like traveling in a different city, your senses are alive, or at least for me, I feel like it's kind of I know I've heard this from people who go rock climbing, that because they're in that moment and it's such a dangerous moment, they are fully present. They're not thinking about the past, the future. They're really just in that moment because they have to be, because it's for their safety. And I think as a solo traveler, I felt that as well, where it's like I have to be fully present here, aware of all my surroundings. thinking about who I'm seeing, where I am, what I'm smelling, all of these things, what I'm hearing. And I really love that as a traveler, and that's something that I wanted to experience with my partner. So we went on a trip, and I enjoyed that trip with him because it was something that he had never done. He's gone on trips, but like small trips with his family or kind of things like that. So to go and experience a trip with my partner, it helped me feel like I could do that with someone and not just do it alone.
I have experienced also rock climbing with my partner, and it's exciting sometimes that I'm not very experienced with rock climbing, but my partner is. So whenever you're in a risky situation and your partner is helping you, just not be in your head and think that you can do something, that's when something changes, something breaks in a different way, and you think, wow, this person is willing to push me or make me feel like I can do something that in my head I have been so accustomed to think that I can't. And it's beautiful because you can apply that same experience through your relationship and in your life and in other relationships. I think also being a good listener is very important. Like you were mentioning all these little things that you enjoy. So whenever like your partner surprises you with something you said that you didn't even notice that you said, you're like, oh, that's beautiful. Like you actually are putting attention on what I love or I enjoy. Or when we feel down and we're lacking maybe self-confidence, or maybe we don't feel good with our body, and our partner is like, hey, let's go to the gym today, or I'm gonna make you something healthy to eat so you can feel better. That's amazing.
I think it's beautiful to nurture something that you see in someone that may be kind of falling short that day. And not to say that like I need a partner to kind of uplift me and to make me feel attractive, but there are those days where you might not feel it yourself, and it is nice to have a partner to be like, oh, let me help pick you up when you're down. And that's kind of the point. I know this might be a little off subject, but I can be a very bad texter. I often get really overstimulated with noises and people and just different energies around me. So I just feel like sometimes it's just a lot of overstimulation. So I struggle to read text messages and be present in a room. And for me, that's something that naturally I just struggle with. Or for example, if I'm at school and then going to work, or just in the grocery store, sometimes it's just too many people, too much energy around me. And often if I get a message from my partner, I'll try to read what's important. My brain goes to like, okay, just reply to what's important and then maybe reply to the rest later. But he thinks that like I'm ignoring him, or he says maybe something, he'll say it twice and then I don't read it, or I'm just like, my brain is just not there to read it. And so then that's something that I've had to work on, is feeling like I don't reply now until I'm ready, because I know that he likes like a thorough response. And that's something that I've had to kind of also communicate of like, hey, like this is what my experience is in the world. And sometimes it can be just too much to be with people and to be fully engaged and then to try to engage with the phone.
Have you told him anything about how you react whenever you're in those situations and what makes you text that way?
Yes.
And how does he respond?
He's taking it into consideration, so he tries to kind of maybe remind me about something that he's asking, rather than being like judgmental or angry or like criticizing that I haven't read it or haven't replied to it. But I know that sometimes it does annoy him because it's like something that he's brought up. So, and I've thought about you, Fabi, and how you've said in the past, like there are certain things that we just cannot change about our partners. And so this is something that I'm working on, but to a certain extent, this is not something that he can necessarily change 100% about me.
It sounds like you found a compromise, like you were saying. Now you don't answer right away, you wait, so that you know that when you are answering it, he gets a thorough answer, something that is pleasant to him. And since he knows that you can get overwhelmed, then I'm sure, even though it probably does annoy him sometimes when he doesn't get the answer right, right after he texts you. I know the feeling overwhelmed, I have that too in crowds and everything, so I completely understand. It's not, and I don't think it's something you can change really. It is what it is, but at least it really sounds like you guys communicated very well and found a way so that everyone is getting what they need.
Yeah, because I feel like at the end of the day, people just want to be heard and kind of accepted, and yeah, everyone just wants to be included. So I feel that we're human and we're going to make errors, like maybe not fully listening to someone when they're speaking because we're so preoccupied with what we want to say. So that's natural. I just think that it's, maybe even bringing it to someone's attention. Like I know at dinner the other night, I was kind of talking about how I was stressed about things, and then he started talking about how he was stressed about things, and I kind of got a little sad, and I got a little in my head because I was like, oh, but I was talking about what was stressing me out. And then later on I told him like, oh, well, you cut me off, I was talking about something. And then he was like super apologetic, like, oh, I'm so sorry, continue, please go on with your thought, like don't let me interrupt you.
Staying in healthy relationships, I know the little details, because those are like micro events, right? You thought, oh wow, I wasn't finished, and you could have just let it go, but those actually build up over time, and it is crucial. And that's where it also comes from self-awareness, being aware. You were aware in the moment that you felt some way about the way he responded to you being stressed, and by talking about himself, and it's great that you told him and that he was able to apologize, because it takes 2 seconds, but then you're not building resentment. And that is, I don't remember what I read about, it was in another psych class, but it was one of the main factors that people have like these micro events and it builds up.
Yeah, because I don't think that like necessarily cheating or straying away from the relationship, or I don't think these are just like events that occur out of nowhere. I think they build over time, and it's little moments of separation and little moments of not feeling like a united couple, and then through that you kind of just eventually you get these little tiny cracks, and then eventually it's a big crack. And so it is important to kind of repair the cracks as they appear.
In the article by Bruck and researchers in 2003, called in the article by Bruck and researchers in 2003, named the relationship between big five personality traits, negative affectivity, type A behavior, and work-family conflict, talks about sometimes how people that are around ourselves can be a better predictor of our personality. Sometimes we don't notice little things we do or how we are acting around others, and that can help us, if we listen to others or the people that we love, just build a better self-report of our characteristics and how these characteristics are actually affecting our partner.
I think that's great. I remember, I can give you a gazillion example of things that I didn't know I did that a partner would point out and realize, oh, like I remember my ex-husband was like, is that the new obsession? I was talking about, I don't know, something I was researching obsessively every day. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, you always have an obsession and you like only talk about that. And I realized he was right. And I never noticed that pattern in me, because you don't stop for everything you do. You only stop for the things that seem to be a problem.
And that comes also with the characteristic of trusting your partner. Like whatever they're saying you is because they love you, and you should trust whatever they're telling you, because there's nothing that it wants to either affect you or the relationship is completely the opposite. Just one thing. So I learned that from the researcher Gab. He wrote an article called The Relationship Work of Sexual Intimacy in Long-Term Heterosexual and LGBTQ Partnership in 2022, where he mentions that LGBTQ and trans couples, sometimes they have healthier relationships in the sexual aspect because they are more willing to communicate, be more open, they're not attached to roles. So I feel like we have a lot to learn from those relationships, and just like humble ourselves that we don't have all the solutions, and not attached to those roles of like what males are supposed to do. Oh, if that thing is not working, then this is not gonna work out. It's okay. We all have good days, bad days. We're all stressed. There's so many variables that makes us feel sexy or ready to, just have sexy time.
Yeah, I think it's putting the fun back in it too. I think sometimes it's just realizing that when you talk about sex, it is supposed to be, yes, it's an intimate, it's a two people meeting, and I could see why someone in the LGBTQ community or trans, they have to talk about more things, and so they have to be open from the get-go. And I think we could all use that. It's it is a way to better intimacy and self-discovery and growth. Again, it's all about growing together, and it doesn't have to be communicating with the other. Doesn't mean it's something negative. Even like if you talk about, the example of like me being obsessive, that wasn't a negative. It was just an observation. It's like, oh, okay, now I know that. Boom, it's in my drawer of this is who I am. Same with sex. Like when you talk about stuff, like, oh, I want to try this, I want to try that, and also always be open and never shame the other. That's always the right. There's that saying, "Don't yuck on my yum." It's always important. Doesn't mean that you have to go where you're not comfortable sexually, but it's really important to be respectful and understand that we're all different and we all have different needs, wants, and everything.
What about whenever we haven't had sex in a while? And because of expectations of media and people around us, make us feel like, ooh, sex is such an important thing. If you're not having it, then you're not going to be happy. That is very detrimental to the relationship. But it's important to understand that your lifestyle and what you're doing in your daily life is going to represent how your sexual life looks. And it's okay to set days sometimes, like, oh, on Fridays and Saturdays is our sexy time, because those are the days that we have time. Obviously, you're not going to be like so mechanical and be like, okay, well, now is the time. It's like 8 o'clock. Come on, let's go to the bedroom. No, it's more like, okay, like this day is whenever you want to, and like just start flirting through the week. So just make it exciting and like, just spice it up with little things.
And you make up the rules, which I think it's real for life in general. We're told like this is how your life is going to go, but really the older I get, the more I realize this is not how it went. And I like the fact that it hasn't, and I like the fact that I get to make up everything about my life. You really are the creator. Of course there's outside, you can't do certain things. I'm not going to jump off the building with a cape and call myself Batman, but you can create a lot. And in a couple's relationship, you two are the creators of your world, because you start sharing this world, and it goes with everything. It goes with how you eat at night, how you go travel or experience things. It becomes like these little things. When you go to somebody's house, they have like these little quirks. Yeah, just because that's their thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's part of strengthening your relationship, not only with your partner, but also with yourself. Like whatever you do in your daily life is going to reflect your future. So what am I doing to build my future? Is this what I want to see myself in 10 years? Just like waking up, watching shows, and like maybe yes, maybe no. But if it's no, the answer, then let's do something about it, right? And also it's important to understand that sex declines in frequency through time. And also if you're a parent, you are so busy that you're running around, running errands, that at the end of the day, you're tired. And sex might look different. Like maybe it's like a quickie. Maybe it's just like 10 minutes, an hour. It doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter how sex looks. As long as you're enjoying it, then that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. And there are some people that also have no sexual drive, like you were saying. And you're right. It seems like now everybody is supposed to have like a super high sexual drive, and you do you. I mean, honestly, like if we sum up everything about this episode, is be yourself. Show up every day, and be mindful of being present and being honest with yourself and others, and just take it in and make it up. Have fun.
This study also talks about how women and queer men often diffuses emotional, fraught sexual scenarios through humor. What do you guys think about that?
I love humor.
Definitely.
Agreed. Again, that's the fun part. It's you're not performing, because I think that's another thing that the media does, especially for women, where they feel like or for men actually, everybody feels like they have to perform, and then there's the rise of porn, which didn't help either. I think the beauty is when you just, we're doing this, it's fun, we're doing it because it feels good, and take it lightly. It's okay, just have fun with it.
And I think it's also important to understand that whenever you're 14, maybe you carry a lot of shame, but I mean, now that you're 25, probably you're like, okay, like I already disattached myself from that shame, because I mean, at 14, your brain is not even fully developed, and it's impossible to just understand the process of what is being sexy or having sex or our first time. It's just so much pressure that society and our family and so many outside sources put in ourselves that it's okay to disattach ourselves from past patterns and stop being ashamed for something we did, because I mean, especially when we're young, we're supposed to make mistakes. That is the age that we're supposed to be discovering and enjoying. And unfortunately, we didn't have those talks that are so important from our partners or people that loved us. So they can make us understand that it is normal to have sex, and it's important that sex is supposed to happen whenever we're ready or whenever we want to just take that step. And if we didn't, it's okay. Then our first time wouldn't be that one. Maybe it would be some other time. So you choose your first time. And
there's a lot of stigma around the first time, though. It's also like the virginity myth and all that, and so there's a lot of shame. It's like you're giving away. No, you are exploring your body, and you do you, and you are going to make tons of mistakes. Like in life, we make mistakes with people, we make mistakes with sex. It is fine. I think if we take up again, it's like it needs to be a little lighter. All this, like, there's a lot of weight put into it.
So I feel like we are learning a lot every day, and one tip that I would just provide to people and to myself, and this is something that I have to remind myself a lot, is that just because I know a lot doesn't mean I know everything. So I'm open to continuously learning and to just getting better. And so just being open to the development that is life, and just be curious.
Definitely. We can only strengthen our relationship as much space we give in our head, in our mind, or allow ourselves to do it. If we just say, oh, I know everything, or I know how to do this, then we're not giving ourselves space to grow.
I agree. I think the learning is also part of the fun. If you make the work and you realize it as a growth, it's a way for you to grow as a person, it's a way for your relationship to grow, then it becomes something actually really fun and exciting, because you're literally working to make your life better. I mean, it's win-win, right? Who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah, I've experienced people, and I've met people who are just, they seem so incredible and so amazing, and how they have so many experiences and wisdom, and they can just they just seem like they have it. They're just amazing. I've met people like that, and that's what I aspire to be. Maybe not perfect, but I aspire to be someone who, maybe someone younger than me, can look at me and be like, oh wow, I really admire that person. How do I work to emulate them, or to kind of learn from them? I want to be that person, because I've met so many amazing people who I've learned from. So I hope to one day offer someone that type of encouragement to learn as well.
And also be humble enough to learn from the younger ones. Because I have met a lot of young people that I'm like, oh, I used to have that and I want that back. That sparkle made me feel like that. So no, I'm not going to lose that. That's what makes me feel myself. So it is important also, yes, to learn from the older ones, but also to learn from the younger ones, because they have that vitality, that energy that just make the world just feel exciting.
Yeah, it's that curiosity and that spark and that lightness. That's what I've learned from my kids, is that I realize everything is much lighter. There's less pull. There's less stress put into everything. And so if you can find that joy and that spark and that curiosity, and just wake up every day and see life that way, then everything's gonna be better. But I think that's also part of being mindful. If you start practicing mindfulness, it is pretty magical.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. This has been a really fun process, just creating these podcasts and having conversations. I think this is something that I hope to eventually create more content and just more podcasts about life, and we'll see where this goes.
I feel like it's therapy. Seriously, we get to analyze and just bring experiences that probably at that moment, we learn from them, but it's important to just bring them out of that album that is so important, so we can just realize, I did that. and I want to be better than that. Always just compare ourselves with our past and only us, no one else.
Correct. Never compare yourself to anyone else. But yeah, this has been really fun. It's fun to research it too, and to be able to tie the research to our experiences has been like really fun. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed all these podcasts, and I hope we brought some information that you can use in your life.